Have you ever stood at a crossroads, facing a choice that could shape your future, and felt completely paralyzed? It's strange, isn't it? We live in a time where we have more freedom than ever, more information than ever, more tools at our disposal. And yet, most people walk around overwhelmed, second-guessing themselves, caught in loops of hesitation. Not because they're lazy, not because they're weak, but because decision-making, true, deliberate, wise decision-making, is one of the hardest things we're ever asked to do. One wrong turn can cost you years. One emotional choice made in a moment of stress can unravel everything you've worked for. But here's the truth that most people never realize. The decisions that shape your life aren't the big ones. They're the small ones you make every day without thinking. What you say yes to, what you avoid, what you tolerate, what you postpone, what you chase, what you settle for. And most of those decisions aren't made from clarity. They're made from fear, ego, habit, emotion, impulse. So here's the question. What would your life look like if for just 30 days you made every decision from a place of stillness, intention, and wisdom? What would change if you stopped reacting and started choosing deliberately, skillfully, like a warrior of the mind? This isn't a question for the distant future. It's a question for right now. Because right now you're deciding who you are. You're deciding what matters. You're deciding moment by moment what kind of life you're building. And if you're tired of feeling scattered, if you're tired of regret, if you're tired of chasing the wrong things or holding back when you know you were built for more, this challenge is for you. 30 days, that's it. 30 days to reset your relationship with decisions. To stop overthinking and start acting with clarity, to stop drifting and start directing, not with chaos, not with panic, but with reason, with virtue, with purpose. And to do that, we're going to reach back, way back, to some of the most powerful minds that ever lived. The Stoics didn't have Wi-Fi, but they understood the human mind better than any psychologist today. They weren't influencers, but their words have outlived empires. Why? Because they spoke to something universal, something that never changes, no matter what century you live in. The challenge of how to think clearly and act rightly when life gets hard. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca. They weren't just philosophers, they were doers, leaders, survivors. They faced betrayal, exile, grief, loss, war, poverty, and they learned how to stay steady in the storm. And they left us a blueprint, a mental operating system, a code for living. And at the core of that code is one skill that governs all the rest, the ability to make wise decisions, not perfect decisions, but principled ones, deliberate ones, ones that align with who you are and who you want to become. So if you've ever said, "I don't know what to do," or "I keep making the same mistakes," or "I wish I could be more decisive," you're in the right place. This 30-day challenge isn't just about fixing bad habits. It's about building a new framework, a way of seeing, a way of thinking, a way of living that makes you stronger, clearer, more grounded, more you. You don't need more information. You need transformation. You need to reclaim your ability to choose, not react, to respond, not repeat, to stand firm, not drift. That begins now, not tomorrow, not when life calms down. Now. 30 days, 30 lessons, 30 small shifts that can lead to one massive change, the return of your agency, the sharpening of your judgment, the alignment of your actions with your highest values. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. So if you're ready to stop letting the world make your choices for you, if you're ready to lead yourself with clarity and purpose, then take a breath, commit fully, and step into this challenge. Your life is waiting on the other side of better decisions. Let's begin. Let's start by getting honest. If you've ever felt stuck, confused, scattered, unsure, overwhelmed, it's probably not because you don't care. It's because you've been caught in what I call the decision dilemma. You want to move forward, but you don't know which path to take. You try to think it through, but the more you think, the more the fog rolls in. You second guess, you overanalyze, and you end up doing nothing. Or worse, doing something that feels right in the moment but leaves you empty afterward. We've all been there. Some people live their whole lives there, in the space between what they know and what they do, in the gap between clarity and chaos. And the bridge that spans that gap, it's decision-making. But here's the real reason it's hard to make good decisions. It's not because you don't know what to do. It's because your mind is filled with noise. Fear, doubt, desire, ego, insecurity, habit, pressure. You're not just choosing between two options. You're choosing between who you've been and who you could become. Between comfort and growth, between short-term pleasure and long-term peace. And without a solid foundation, you're going to drift toward the easiest, safest, most familiar choice. Not the best one. Not the one that aligns with your values, the one that gets you off the hook fastest. The Stoics knew this. That's why they didn't just talk about ideas. They built a framework for life. A way of thinking, a way of filtering decisions so they weren't guided by chaos, but by clarity. They understood that the root of suffering isn't external, it's internal. It's how we interpret, evaluate, and respond. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are disturbed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That's not just poetic. That's the blueprint. The pain of indecision doesn't come from the options in front of you. It comes from your lack of alignment, your inability to see clearly what truly matters. And that happens when you live without a compass. So let's build one. To make better decisions, you need to understand what's pulling you in different directions. You need to identify the invisible forces shaping your actions. Ego wants to protect your image. Fear wants to keep you small. Desire wants the quickest reward, but your higher self, it wants virtue, it wants truth, it wants freedom. That's what this challenge is about, training your mind to separate noise from signal, distraction from direction, temptation from truth. And you do that through practice. Daily practice. Simple, focused, deliberate steps toward thinking better, seeing clearer, and choosing stronger. Because every decision you make is either a vote for the person you want to become or a vote for the person you've been trying to outgrow. And those votes add up. They shape your life, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, persistently. So we have to ask a deeper question. What is a good decision? According to the Stoics, a good decision isn't the one that leads to immediate comfort. It's the one that aligns with reason, with virtue, with what is truly within your control. It's the one that reflects your highest self, not your lowest impulse. And to make that kind of decision, you need a framework. That brings us to the core Stoic model for better choices. First, you must understand the distinction between what you can control and what you can't. This is the bedrock of Stoic thinking. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us and some things are not. And if you mix those up, your life will be full of frustration. But if you master that distinction, your mind becomes clear. You stop trying to manage outcomes and start managing your effort, your attention, your attitude." Second, you must develop your perception. You must train your mind to see clearly, without distortion. Most of your poor decisions come not from a lack of options, but from a lack of perspective. You react instead of reflect. You assume instead of investigate. But the Stoic trains their perception daily. They pause, they question, they seek the truth beneath the noise. Third, you must align your choices with virtue. That's the true North Star, not success, not popularity, not pleasure, virtue. Wisdom, courage, justice, temperance, the four pillars that every Stoic decision rests on. If it doesn't align with virtue, it's not a wise choice, no matter how good it feels. Fourth, you must cultivate detachment. Detachment from the outcome, from other people's approval, from temporary discomfort. The Stoic doesn't chase results, they chase excellence. They let go of what they can't control and focus entirely on how they show up. And finally, you must reflect daily. Decision-making is a skill, and every skill is sharpened through review. The Stoics journaled, they meditated, they looked back at their choices, not to shame themselves, but to learn, to adjust, to grow. So, if you want to make better decisions, you have to become a different kind of thinker. A deeper kind, a calmer kind, a deliberate kind. And that's exactly what we're going to build over the next 30 days. Each day, you'll practice one small shift, one way of seeing, one technique of choosing. You'll challenge your reflexes. You'll slow your mind. You'll replace reaction with response. You'll train yourself to move through life not as a passenger, but as a pilot. And over time, the fog will lift. The pressure will drop. The voice inside you will get clearer, steadier, stronger. Not because life gets easier, but because you do. Because you've stopped making decisions from a place of fear and started making them from a place of strength. That's the gift of Stoicism. Not a perfect life, but a powerful mind. Let's build it. One choice at a time. Let's lay out exactly how this challenge is going to work. 30 days. That's your container. That's your commitment. But don't worry, we're not adding more noise to your already full plate. We're not giving you something to obsess over. We're giving you a path to clarity, and we're keeping it simple. Each day, you'll focus on one core principle or mental shift. You'll take no more than 10 to 15 minutes. That's it. It might be a reflection, a journal prompt, a change in how you approach a moment in your routine. But by the end of 30 days, you won't just be thinking differently. You'll be deciding differently. And you'll feel it in your body, your relationships, your time, your sense of peace. There are a few ground rules for this challenge. Not because we're trying to be rigid, but because clarity thrives within structure. Rule 1. No perfectionism. If you miss a day, you don't start over. You don't punish yourself. You return, you reset. You recommit. Progress is better than purity. You're not here to impress anyone. You're here to train your mind. Rule 2. One decision a day. That's the only real goal. Not to make every decision perfectly, but to make one intentionally, with presence, with awareness, with alignment. That might be how you respond to someone who challenges you. It might be how you choose to spend your time. It might be saying no to something you'd normally say yes to out of guilt. But it has to be a choice you make on purpose. That's your muscle. That's what we're building. Rule 3. Journal. Don't overcomplicate it. 3 lines a day. What did I choose today? Why did I choose it? What did I learn from it? That's it. Decision. Reason. Reflection. Over 30 days, those short lines will become a mirror, a map, a reminder of your progress. And finally, Rule 4. Protect your mornings. Start each day by reviewing the intention. Don't wait until the world crashes into you. Don't wait until you're already overwhelmed and distracted. Give yourself 10 minutes at the beginning of the day to read, reflect, and center your mindset. If you can do that, you'll win the rest of the day before it even starts. This challenge isn't about how much you can do. It's about how clearly you can see. And seeing clearly begins with slowing down, breathing deep, and creating a space where wisdom can rise. You won't get it perfect. Some days will feel like a fog. Others will feel like a breakthrough. That's the process. That's the practice. What matters is that you keep showing up, keep choosing, keep refining. And that brings us to the first week. Week 1 is about clearing the mental lens. It's about perception. Before you can make better decisions, you need to learn to see what's actually in front of you, not what your emotions project, not what your fears invent, not what your past distorts. You need to separate what is from what you think it is. That's the first discipline, and it's one the Stoics trained relentlessly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." That one sentence could change your entire life. Because most of your stress, most of your indecision, most of your regret, it doesn't come from reality. It comes from interpretation. This week, we focus on one thing each day: cleaning the lens, removing the fog, disentangling thought from truth. Day 1 is about observation. Today, don't try to fix or change anything. Just watch your mind. Watch your reactions. Watch how quickly you label things good or bad, safe or dangerous, desirable or threatening. Don't resist it. Just name it. That's fear, that's pride. That's craving, that's habit. Give your patterns a name. When you can name it, you create space from it. Day 2 is about emotion. Choose one moment today when you feel emotionally charged. Pause and ask, what's the story I'm telling myself? That they disrespected me? That I'm being judged? That I'll fail? Is it true? Can I know it's true? Or is it just a story I'm rehearsing? This is how you loosen emotion's grip. You question it. You examine it. Day 3 is about reframing. Take one moment that felt negative or frustrating and rewrite it. Instead of saying, "This shouldn't have happened," say, "This is training." Instead of, "Why me?" ask, "What can I build with this?" The situation doesn't change, but your relationship to it does. Day 4 is silence. 10 minutes, no phone, no music, no input, just you and your thoughts. Sit and observe the storm. What shows up, what's loud, what's recurring. Write it down, don't analyze it, just get familiar with what's running in the background. Because if you don't notice it, it runs the show. Day 5 is about assumptions. Choose a moment where you normally assume something about someone's tone, someone's intentions, the outcome of an event. Catch that assumption. Ask yourself, what else might be true? This is how you loosen the grip of false certainty. You become mentally flexible. Day 6 is about slowing down your reaction. Choose one moment today where you would normally react automatically. An email, a comment, a traffic jam. Instead of acting, breathe. Count to 3. Ask yourself, is this response aligned with who I want to be? Choose deliberately. Day 7 is reflection. Go back over your journal. Look at the 7 choices you made. Were they reactive or reflective? Where did you feel most clear? Where did you stumble? What pattern do you notice? Week 1 is all about cleaning out the noise. No fixing yet, just noticing. Just clearing space, just getting honest about how often you move on autopilot, and that's okay. That's why we're here, to train, to see, to choose with awareness. You've already started, you've already taken the first step. Keep going. Clarity isn't an accident, it's a practice. And every day you show up, it grows. Week 2 is where we shift from seeing clearly to choosing clearly. This is about reclaiming your power, not the kind that comes from control over others, but the kind that comes from control over yourself. Week 2 is about inner discipline. It's about recognizing what you can control and building the will to act on it. Nothing more, nothing less. Epictetus said, "The chief task in life is simply this, to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control." This is the work now, not managing outcomes, not predicting the future, not changing the world, but managing you. Day 8 is separation. Write down 3 things that are stressing you right now. Then draw 2 columns. On one side, what you can control. On the other side, what you can't. Let go of the second column. Circle one thing from the first and take action today, no matter how small. That's discipline, doing your part fully while releasing the rest. Day 9 is impulse. Choose one area of your life where you often act on impulse. Spending, eating, checking your phone, reacting emotionally. Today, create one pause before that action. One breath, one question. Is this action aligned with my values or my emotion? That pause is everything. That's where your power lives. Day 10 is effort. Most people work hard on things they can't control, impressing others, controlling outcomes. Today, put focused effort only into what's yours, your preparation, your response, your mindset. Choose one task you've been avoiding and do it with full presence, not because of the result, but because it's yours to do. Day 11 is integrity. Make one small promise to yourself today and keep it. It could be as simple as taking a walk, turning off your phone at dinner, writing for 5 minutes. But keep it, because every time you follow through, you build self-trust. And every decision you make becomes easier when you trust yourself to act. Day 12 is resistance. Today, notice when your mind wants to escape discomfort, a boring task, a hard conversation, a moment of quiet. Don't escape it, lean into it, sit in it for one more minute than you normally would. Discipline isn't about punishment, it's about staying present when your instincts tell you to run. Day 13 is ownership. Take one thing you've been blaming on someone else, your mood, your time, your choices, and own it. Say out loud or write down, "This is mine," then decide, what can I do with it today? It might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. That shift changes everything. Day 14 is awareness. Look back at your week and write down the moments where you acted with discipline and the moments where you didn't. What triggered you? What supported you? What helped you pause? What pulled you off course? The goal isn't shame, it's information. The more you see, the more you can strengthen. Discipline isn't about control, it's about freedom. It's about training your mind to serve you, not sabotage you. When you know what's yours and you do it without waiting for permission or perfection, you become untouchable. Not because life gets easier, but because you've become steadier. Week 3 is about right action. Now that you've cleared your lens and grounded your mind, it's time to build a compass. Because clarity is only useful if it leads to action, and action is only useful if it aligns with virtue. The Stoics didn't believe in morality as an abstract concept. They believed in daily practice. They believed that the purpose of life is to act well, not to win, not to be admired, but to live in accordance with virtue. That means wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. 4 principles. 4 anchors. 4 standards by which you measure every decision. Day 15 is wisdom. Today, pause before any major decision and ask, what is the wisest thing I can do right now? Not the easiest, not the fastest, the wisest. Wisdom often means thinking long-term. It means questioning assumptions. It means stepping back, even when you want to react. Practice that today. Day 16 is courage. You already know what you've been avoiding. Today, do one thing that scares you, not recklessly but boldly. Speak up, start the project. Set the boundary, send the message. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting anyway. Let your values lead, not your nerves. Day 17 is justice. This isn't about legality, it's about fairness, decency, service. Today, do something that helps someone else, with no expectation. Speak kindly, forgive without making it public. Make a decision that benefits more than just you. This is the root of leadership. Acting not from ego, but from principle. Day 18 is temperance. This is restraint, moderation, choosing balance over indulgence. Today, notice where you go to excess, where you chase too much, where you let desire run your decisions. Then scale it back. Choose enough, choose less. Choose peace over thrill. That's real strength. Day 19 is alignment. Pick one decision you made recently and ask, did this reflect my values? If yes, great, reinforce it. If not, ask why. Was it pressure? Fear, habit. Map the gap. Know where your choices break from your compass. Then commit to realignment, one decision at a time. Day 20 is presence. You can't act with virtue if you're not present. Today, whatever you do, eating, talking, walking, do it fully. No multitasking. No rushing, just presence. Action that's grounded, slow, deliberate. That's where clarity comes from. That's where the best decisions live. Day 21 is commitment. Look back on your week and identify the virtue that's hardest for you. Wisdom, courage. Justice, temperance, that's your work. That's your edge. Choose one small daily behavior to strengthen it this week. Repeat it. Practice it. Build it like a muscle. Right action is a decision. And decision is a skill. You train it not once, but every day, by aligning what you do with who you are, and by letting virtue, not emotion, be your guide. When you act in line with virtue, you don't need external validation. You don't need applause. You don't even need the outcome to go your way, because you know deep down that you lived right, and that's a peace no one can give or take away. Week 4 is where it all starts to come together. This is where we shift from short-term clarity to long-term alignment. We've spent the past few weeks sharpening your perception, strengthening your discipline, and aligning your actions with your values. Now we go even deeper. Now we ask not just, what do I do today, but what kind of life am I building? Week 4 is about thinking in decades while acting in days. It's about zooming out, about imagining the future you want to look back on and asking, am I making decisions that lead me there or decisions that pull me away? This week, we train the long view, the legacy lens. We start choosing for the person we want to become, not the person we're trying to protect, please, or avoid. Day 22 is future self-alignment. Picture yourself 1 year from now, stronger, calmer, clearer, more disciplined. What did that person stop doing? What did they start? Today, make one decision that your future self will thank you for. One behavior, one conversation, one act of courage. Begin writing your future with a single page. Day 23 is memento mori. Remember, you will die. Don't run from it. Use it. If today were your last, would you be proud of your decision-making? Would you be proud of how you handled the conversation, how you spent your time, what you stood for? Most people delay what matters. They think there's more time. But clarity lives in urgency. Ask yourself today, if this is it, what matters now? Day 24 is values over outcomes. We've talked about virtue. Now we test it. Choose one thing you've been chasing, an outcome, a result, a payoff, and detach from it. Today, focus solely on the effort, the practice, the process. Not for praise, not for points, just because it's right. Build trust in the path, not in the result. Day 25 is decision fatigue detox. You don't need more options. You need fewer, clearer ones. Today, simplify. Remove one unnecessary choice from your routine. Pick your outfit the night before. Eat the same breakfast. Automate or delegate one task. Every useless decision steals clarity from the ones that matter. Free your mind. Day 26 is identity calibration. Ask yourself, who am I when no one is watching? Your actions today should be consistent with that answer. Make one decision today that reflects not who others expect you to be, but who you know you are deep down, not to impress. Not to fit in, but to be aligned. Day 27 is letting go. What are you holding on to that's making your decisions harder than they need to be? An old belief? A past failure? A need for control? Today, write it down, then let it go. Literally or symbolically, say, "This no longer guides me." Make space for clarity by clearing out the noise. Day 28 is saying no. One of the most powerful decisions you'll ever make is the decision to walk away, to decline, to protect your time, your energy, your integrity. Today, say no to one thing that drains you, that pulls you away from who you're becoming, that doesn't serve your long view. Let that no be your commitment to something greater. You've made it this far, 2 days left. Now it's time to reflect, refine, and reset your foundation. The final 2 days aren't just about ending strong. They're about building something that lasts. Day 29 is your review. Go back through your journal. Reread the past 4 weeks. What patterns showed up? Where did you struggle? Where did you grow? What was the decision that made you feel strongest? What was the choice that shifted something inside you? Write down 3 lessons that surprised you. Then write down 3 areas you still need to work on. This isn't about critique, it's about clarity. Now, write a new decision-making rule for yourself. Just one. Something like, "I don't choose from fear," or "I always pause before reacting," or "I make decisions that serve who I want to become, not who I want to protect." This becomes your new compass. Your North Star. Return to it often. Day 30 is your rebirth. Not symbolic, not philosophical, real. You've been practicing for a month. You've seen what happens when you slow down, when you get clear, when you stop outsourcing your power. Now you build your own decision protocol, your personal stoic checklist. Keep it simple. Just a few questions to ask yourself before you make any meaningful decision. Is this within my control? Does this align with virtue? Am I choosing this from wisdom or from emotion? Will this decision age well? Would I be proud of this if no one knew? Write those down. Keep them somewhere you'll see them. You don't need a perfect system. You need a dependable one that helps you act, not react. One that gives you clarity when your mind gets clouded. One that protects you from regret. Today, make one final decision. The decision to lead yourself. Not perfectly, but intentionally. The decision to stop drifting, to stop playing small, to stop making choices based on fear, pressure, ego, or habit. You know who you are. You've seen what you're capable of. Now choose to live like it every day. From here forward, not because someone else said so, but because you've earned the right to trust your own mind. That's the end of the challenge. But it's the beginning of something more important. A life built on clarity, on reason, on character. A life that reflects the best of who you are, not just in the big moments, but in the thousands of small decisions that shape you. And it all began with one choice: to show up. You did that. Now keep going. Your life is a reflection of your choices. Choose power, choose peace, choose purpose. One decision at a time. You've made it to the end, not just the end of a video, not just the end of a 30-day challenge. You've made it to the edge of something bigger, the threshold between who you were and who you're becoming. And now, in this space, there's only one thing left to ask. What kind of life are you going to live from here? This challenge wasn't about doing more, it was about seeing more. It wasn't about becoming perfect. It was about becoming responsible, accountable, awake. Because the quality of your life is the quality of your decisions, and the quality of your decisions is a direct reflection of your clarity, your courage, your commitment to virtue over ego. That's the heart of Stoicism. Not some cold philosophy about suppressing emotion, but a fierce invitation to live deliberately, to lead yourself, to act with intention in a world that constantly wants to pull you in every direction but your own. And now you know how. You know how to pause before you react, how to question your assumptions, how to separate what's in your control from what isn't, how to hold your values higher than your feelings, how to say no when something violates your peace, how to act not out of fear or impulse, but out of integrity. You've learned that discomfort isn't the enemy, confusion isn't the enemy, even failure isn't the enemy. It's drift, it's mindlessness, it's choosing without choosing. And now, you're no longer a passenger in your own life. You're in the driver's seat. Not because everything is figured out, but because you've remembered who you are, what matters, and what kind of life you want to build, on purpose, not by accident. The Stoics didn't care if you were rich or poor, respected or ignored. What they cared about was how you lived, how you thought, how you acted when no one was watching. They understood that philosophy wasn't about theory, it was about action, about facing the world with a steady mind and a strong heart. And now you've joined that tradition. Maybe you didn't know it when you started, but that's what you've been doing, training for clarity, practicing for peace, forging a self that doesn't rise and fall with the chaos outside, but stands rooted in something deeper, something unshakable. This is where real transformation begins. Not in the peaks, but in the ordinary, in the daily practice of seeing clearly and choosing rightly, in making decisions that don't just get you through the day, but build the life you want to look back on with no regrets. You don't need to wait for inspiration anymore. You don't need someone else to tell you what to do. You have the framework. You have the tools. You have the experience now. You've lived it. So here's your next step. Keep going. Keep showing up. Keep choosing. The decisions won't always be easy, but they will always be yours. And every time you stop, breathe, and act from wisdom, you are honoring something sacred. Not just your future, but your nature, the part of you that was always meant to lead, to grow, to serve, to rise. This isn't just a 30-day challenge anymore. This is your new way of life, one decision at a time, from the inside out. From virtue, not pressure, from purpose, not panic. Let the world do what it does. Let the noise rise, let the storms come. You've trained for this. Now live it.